Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining here in person and online. And welcome to this IGF Open Forum on developing a secure, rights-respecting digital future. My name is Neil Wilson. I come from the Cyber Policy Department of the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. And I'm delighted to be chairing this session alongside such an esteemed panel at such a pivotal moment in global digital governance. You will all have heard a lot this week about the critical juncture we find ourselves at here at the 20th anniversary and indeed the 20th edition of the IGF. Following the adoption of the Global Digital Compact and amid the WSIS Plus 20 review, both the scale of the challenge and the urgency of addressing it has arguably never been clearer. We have been continually reminded this week, as in our kind of daily lives, that the digital world is no longer a separate space. It's the very infrastructure of our economies, our societies, our daily lives. And how we govern these technologies is critical to how we govern ourselves, and especially for those of us undergoing digital transformation. Indeed, we're in a period of immense change, and it shows no signs of slowing as we embrace new and emerging technologies. And with this transformation comes a really complex web of challenges: cybersecurity threats, widening digital divides, ethical dilemmas in AI, the urgent need to ensure ultimately that digital transformation respects human rights and promotes inclusion. But this session is about more than just identifying problems. In line with this year's IGF theme of building governance together, this session is about exploring collaborative, inclusive and accountable solutions. So today we'll be asking a wide range of questions. How do we ensure that all voices, especially those historically excluded, are heard in shaping our digital future? How do we connect the unconnected? How do we balance innovation with rights protection? How can we build resilient, rights-respecting digital infrastructure that serves everyone, everywhere? So to help us unpack these questions, I'm joined by an outstanding selection of panelists who I will actually ask to introduce themselves, so it's not just me speaking at this top section. So to my right, we have Alessandra Lustrati. Alessandra, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Neil, and good morning, everybody online and in person. Thank you for waking up this early to join us. I'm Alessandra Lustrati. I'm the head of the Digital Development Cluster in the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. I'm also a Senior Private Sector Development Advisor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. I think online we have Samantha O'Riordan from the ITU. Samantha, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. So my name is Samantha O'Riordan. I'm based at the ITU in Geneva, and I am part of the ITU development sector, and working actually with Alessandra. We have a partnership working to assist several countries in connecting the unconnected.
Thank you, Samantha, for joining us. Great to see you. Also joining us online, we have Leonard Mabele. Leonard, are you with us?
Yes, hello Neil, hello everyone. Hope you can all see me. My name is Leonard Mabele, greetings from Kenya, and I lead the research and innovation at the African Advanced Level Telecommunications Institute, AFRALTI, which is based in Nairobi. And I'm also a PhD candidate at Strathmore University, and with the two institutions, that is AFRALTI and Strathmore, we've been working closely with Alessandra through the Digital Access Initiative at CDO. Looking forward to speaking more.
Thank you, Leonard. Great to see you. Next, we have Professor Luzungo Mfupe. Professor, can you hear us?
Yes, now. Good morning, colleagues. I'm Luzango Mfupe. I'm a chief researcher at Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSAR, here in South Africa. My area of research interest is connecting the unconnected, and I've been working with Alessandra and FCDO in a number of initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And now returning to the room for our final panelist here in Oslo, Maria Paz-Canales. Maria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much for the invitation from FCDO to be here speaking with you. I'm Maria Paz-Canales. I'm the head of policy and advocacy at Global Partners Digital, a civil society organization based in the UK, but working globally with partners across different regions in underpinning human rights consideration in digital policy.
Thank you, Maria. So each of our panelists really brings quite a unique lens to this conversation, and as do you, our audience, both here in person and those of you joining online from all around the world. And it's really wonderful to use this opportunity to bridge these different perspectives, encourage some multi-stakeholder dialogue from across government, industry, academia, the technical community, and civil society. So together we're going to explore how we can shape a secure, inclusive, and rights-respecting digital future. Just a very quick note, I suppose, on how we will run this session. To kick things off, each of our panelists will provide some opening remarks on the principles they see as most relevant to developing a secure, rights-respecting digital future. And then we'll dive into discussion as a panel before we open it up to our audience here, both in the room and those of you joining online. So without further ado, Alessandra, would you like to kick us off with the principles you see as most relevant to developing a secure and rights-respecting digital future?
Thank you so much, Neil. I'll try to see whether I can... Oh, they're opening up my presentation. Thank you, Tech. I guess you can go into presentation mode. Okay. And so, good morning again. We've started getting to know each other. So I hope you're looking forward to this kind of quite diverse set of contributions. My task this morning is to provide you with an overview of the approach of the UK government to digital development. And as usual, before we say the what we do and how we do it, it's always good to ask why we do it, even this early in the morning. So why? Normally, when we reflect on these things, we try to organize them on 4 different levels. First of all, and apologies that maybe the text is a little bit small for reading, but I'll run through the key concepts for you. So first of all, we think about the fact that digital transformation is now widely recognized as an absolutely key enabler of social and economic development, even an accelerator of the SDGs, as many people like to say. And this has been further accelerated and amplified also by the upcoming technologies, and including AI that is already there with us. And then, of course, let me just see, enabling development. Yes, I can't read. My eyesight is very bad. So all of this can enable development at different levels, and but at the same time, there are problems that we need to solve. So the first one is the digital divide. We know that 2.6 billion people are still offline in the world, but we have other divides, plural, including on digital skills and access and accessibility of digital content and services. We also have specific things like the gender digital gaps, and many of you are very, very familiar with these issues. On top of the divides, we need to think about the risks. And as you all know, risks that have been developing and accelerating over time include, cybersecurity threats, online safety risks, but also those risks that, again, AI has amplified and is amplifying, like misinformation and disinformation. So these are the kind of 4 levels that sort of, in a way, justify why we want to work on digital development. But what is digital development for us? So the definition of digital development for FCDO is that we want to support our partner countries in achieving an inclusive, responsible, and sustainable digital transformation. It's quite a mouthful, so I'm going to unpack it for you by using our policy framework, which is here, very colorful. So digital development is quite a complex concept, and I know that different colleagues and stakeholders in the IGF and beyond define it in many different ways. We find this way of articulating our thinking quite useful, and we've developed this policy framework based on experience of various quite a few years of working with partner countries in trying to promote the use of digital technologies to advance development. So when we think about digital transformation, we are actually referring to digital transformation typically of the economy, as people think of spontaneously, but also very much of government and of society in the broad sense of the term. So it's a very broad approach to digital transformation. However, we don't want to, let's say, promote digital transformation just for the sake of it. We want it to be inclusive, responsible, and sustainable. So under the pillar of digital inclusion, we focus, of course, on the foundational block without which we cannot do anything, which is inclusive and sort of affordable and sustainable connectivity, especially connectivity at the last mile for the most underserved. But also within that same bucket of digital inclusion, we look at the situation of specifically underserved communities, of course, but also marginalized groups like women and girls and people living with disabilities. And we think about not just just how they can get connected, but also how they can access digital content and services that are relevant to them, and how they can develop and use digital skills at different levels so that digital connectivity becomes meaningful to them, productive, and really makes sense for their context. And then going on to sort of manage the risks is the bucket of digital responsibility, within which we include all our work. Of course, not just our work as the UK, but the work with all the partners and stakeholders that we collaborate all the time with. We focus on cybersecurity capacity building, cyber hygiene awareness, but also the promotion of online safety. We have also very strong emphasis on technology-facilitated gender-based violence. That unfortunately is a phenomenon that has been growing over the past few years, and also the importance of data protection. And, you know, again, with the advance of AI, data and the protection of data and the use of data and the transparency of it is becoming an even more critical issue. And last but not least, the digital sustainability. This is a pillar that we added to our framework a couple of years ago, so it's a bit more recent, like many other organizations around the world, started to think about, yes, digital transformation is really critical, is really important, and brings a lot of benefits. We can leverage it in a positive way to provide digital tools and platforms for solutions on climate change adaptation and resilience for local communities. However, there is also a clear environmental cost of digital transformation. Just think about the energy use, the critical minerals, the physical infrastructure, you name it. And again, with the advent of AI, this is amplifying again. Think about data centers, et cetera, et cetera. So let me just put the next one. So hopefully that gives you an overview. But if you want to know more, and also if you want to see practical examples of how we've applied this over the years with evidence of the impact of this approach, and also a bit of the plan for the future, look at the digital development strategy, and that's the QR code to make it easier for you if you want. So I give you a second in case you want to take note of that. Wonderful. Okay. And then we go into last part of my presentation is on actually giving you a practical example of how we apply all of this thinking and sort of our policy and strategy approach. And I will focus only specifically on our, what we call our sort of quote unquote flagship program on digital access. The digital access program is a partnership between FCDO and DCIT, the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. We work together across government to promote three pillars of work. The first one is on digital inclusion, pillar one, and it basically works at two levels. One is the level of the policies, sort of regulatory frameworks and standards that create that enabling environment, that system-wide change that can sort of support and enhance digital inclusion. But at the market and community level, we specifically focus on testing technology and business models that can enable, first of all, that kind of famous, inclusive, meaningful, affordable, sustainable connectivity at the last mile, but also all the other models that help with digital skills, access to content and services, etc. The second pillar is the kind of trust and resilience, so it kind of maybe makes you think back of what I explained as digital responsibility, with a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity capacity building, but also work on online safety and data protection. And last but not least, pillar three is about now taking all of this work, creating that sort of positive environment for the local digital economy and ecosystem, and specifically supporting those forms of tech entrepreneurship in the local digital economies of our 5 focal countries that you see listed at the top, Brazil, Indonesia, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa, to basically facilitate and sort of stimulate digital innovations that are useful for local development challenges. And this also creates opportunities for, obviously, business partnerships and investment, collaborations across the border as well. Obviously, from those 5 countries, today we have with us, obviously, Kenya and South Africa represented extremely well. We work also in the other 3, and actually we are amplifying the work of the Digital Access Program ODAP to the regions by just sharing knowledge and just on a demand basis, disseminating the models that we've demonstrated over the years. And I will just say to conclude that top-line results of the program have been so far that we've reached 15 million people over 5 countries in over over 5,000 communities, all 555. It's quite easy to sort of remember, where we have sustainably improved the digital inclusion of people in these communities. But you could think that 50 million people actually in 2.6 billion people is just a drop in the ocean. What is important is not so much just the number of people that we reach in a sustainable way, but it's actually the models and the practices that we try to demonstrate with a multi-stakeholder approach, and how all of this gets embedded through a lot of sort of capacity building and technical assistance that really enables local organizations to then take forward, and local stakeholders to take forward that work. I should quote that delivery model is very flexible and agile, and I should say that we give huge priority to working with local organizations, but we also have a fantastic global partners. Of course, the ITU is on line with us, and you've heard from the other partners in Kenya and South Africa. You'll listen to them in a minute. We also work with the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, the British Standards Institute, and the British Council on the various aspects of the program. So I will stop here, and I hope that this gives you enough of a framework of our thinking of digital development, and also the overview of the program. And now you will hear more specific presentations on some of the activities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alessandra. Really comprehensive overview of the UK approach there, and I'm sure plenty of material for some really rich discussion to follow. So turning now to Samantha O'Riordan from the ITU, I'll turn over to you for your opening remarks on how we can develop a secure and rights-respecting digital future. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil, and good morning, everyone. I represent the International Telecommunications Union, ITU, which is the UN Specialized Agency for Information and Communication Technologies. And this year, ITU is proud to turn 160 years old. But even since the beginning of the ITU, there have been concerns about trustworthy communication and about interference. Back in the day, it was interference of cable, but now things have moved on. Technology has progressed with the rise of new technologies such as AI and quantum computing. Cybersecurity has become foundational to digital development and should be part of every layer of technological advancement to ensure trust and resilience. It is important to note that as we progress in this digital age, that there are still, as Alessandra mentioned, 2.6 billion people who are offline. And of those people who are offline, the majority of them can still be found in Africa and Asia. So it is a disproportionate spread. And it's also just important to note that while we talk about coverage, and often we say that I think it's now between about 97% of the world is covered by a mobile network. There is also a usage gap. And there are many reasons why there is and still remains a usage gap. And this is often the primary two of the primary reasons are down to affordability, but also a lack of digital skills, awareness, knowledge, maybe local content, and trust. It is important that people feel safe and secure online. That is why ITU has been part and supported the UN targets on meaningful connectivity for 2030, which state that it's important for those who have connectivity to have meaningful connectivity. And by meaningful connectivity, it means that users have access to a safe, satisfying, enriching, and productive online experience at an affordable cost. So in terms of ITU-D and what we do and how we support countries, we have been supporting countries with enabling policy and regulatory environments, helping them to create those through research, capacity building, and awareness raising. Also, we have been promoting inclusive and secure telecommunications for sustainable development. On the topic of cybersecurity, ITU has been at the forefront of capacity development for over 20 years through the WSIS Action Line C5 and World Telecommunications Development Conference in 2006. And even though it's been a decade of the Global Cybersecurity Index, you can see today that the challenges persist in least developed countries and small island developing states, which are often more than 10 years behind other developing countries. So just to give you a few examples of how ITU is supporting countries to help ensure safer environments. So ITU has helped establish 24 computer incident response teams. Over the past 2 years, ITU has worked with 7 different countries to establish national cybersecurity strategies through training workshops, discussions in countries. Since 2022, ITU has worked with over 50 partners in 30 countries to train over 170,000 children, 2,500 parents and educators, and over 1,000 governments and stakeholders on child online protection. And it's not just about keeping children safe online. It's also thinking as well about the experience of women and supporting women online with initiatives such as Women in Cyber and her Cyber Tracks, making sure that women are also trained and able to connect safely. Lastly, just to mention that in May, ITU organized a global cyber drill in Dubai with over 136 countries participating. As Alessandra mentioned, we have been working with FCDO, in particular the Digital Access Program, to promote effective regulation, greater investment, and innovative models for connectivity in underserved communities in 5 countries, which are Brazil, Indonesia, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. So the work has included policy guidance and recommendations for regulators, research into last mile and alternative access solutions, and digital inclusion research and training. Examples of the work that we have been doing include collaborative regulation studies in Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa, development of universal service financing efficiency toolkit and training, and digital assessments. Digital skills assessments conducted in Kenya and Nigeria. So we have been supportive of making sure that whilst when connectivity reaches those underserved communities, they still have a safe online experience. Finally, I just wanted to mention that with the upcoming World Telecommunications Development Conference this November in Baku, Azerbaijan, ITUD will continue to deepen our commitment to leaving no one behind and ensuring meaningful connectivity, ensuring that populations have the relevant skills, countries have the tools and partnerships needed to ensure that their populations thrive securely in the digital age. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Much appreciated. And really interesting there to hear about all the work that the ITU is doing, not just on improving connectivity, but meaningful connectivity, of course. And I know this is, the topic of kind of innovation as well as connectivity is of keen interest to our next speaker, Leonard Mabele. So, Leonard, I will pass now to you for your opening remarks.
Yeah, once again, thank you very much, Neil, and great to be here again. I'm just going to share a small slide I have here. Yeah, Neil, I can see on my screen. Just let me know if it's all clear in the room.
Yep, we can see that in the room. Thank you.
Perfect. So just building on to what Alessandra was mentioning earlier about digital access initiatives, I'm just going to present a glimpse of what's going on in Kenya, what sort of activities are happening in Kenya, and pretty much from what some of the government initiatives looking at digital access across the country, and some form of collaborations within the region, as well as the projects that we are working on or have already worked on under the Digital Access Initiative, a program by FCDO. So from 2018 to 2021, the government, of course, working together, led by the Communications Authority of Kenya, developed the National Broadband Strategy that pretty much saw a growth and a bit of multi-stakeholder participation in delivering access and connectivity to different sort of stakeholders, in this case, to schools, to rural locations, etc. But still, while significant results were achieved out of it, there were still some challenges realized. And in this case was delivering last mile access requires more like a holistic approach to things, which in this case includes digital skills, includes devices, a focus on power. So that national broadband strategy, having lived its time until 2021, the government enacted a new plan through the Ministry of Digital Economy. The new plan is the Kenya National Digital Master Plan, the one I'm just presenting right now. And in this case, it became a bit more specific or laid out different pillars that would be able to address some of the things that had been identified from the previous national broadband strategy. So key to this master plan and going until 2032, having now, whom not Alessandro is presenting, the first and fundamental pillar to the work is the digital infrastructure. So while cellular infrastructure has covered predominantly about 90% of the country, and in this case on 4G, there is a need to still look at affordable access and maybe borrowing some of the words from Samantha, making sure that the affordable access is also meaningful in some of the places that are still very much underserved. And in this case, most of them are in the rural areas. So if you're looking at the Kenyan map, and which was on my first slide, we do have counties as larger as the size of Netherlands, and some of them are larger as, kind of combine two countries in Europe. And with that kind of geography, different models are needed, and also different approaches to reaching the last mile are required. And that forms a very key strategic pillar for the ICT, for the Ministry of ICT. And so digital infrastructure is really key, and looking at how that can look at also innovative ways that enables access, meaningful access to the last mile. And then while looking at that and fleshing out from the previous national broadband strategies, also the focus on digital skills. So in this case, ensuring that the underserved population see value in what connectivity means. And in this case, underserved might include the rural youths, also includes a significant fraction of women in the rural communities that may not see the value or do not have yet the understanding of the opportunity that ICT presents to them. So that's a very key pillar that the Ministry of Digital Economy has also put in a lot of weight to ensure some key objectives are achieved there. And then while looking at that, of course, infrastructure being a window or an opportunity to unlock more entrepreneurship activities and enable more developments in the Industry 4.0 opportunities such as Internet of Things. We are all familiar with the conversations on AI now. So digital innovation is also one of the key pillars that the Ministry of Digital Economy has also fleshed out to be able to see a lot of work happen, not only in the urban and suburban areas, but as well as the rural communities. In this case, just remembering that if you're in Kenya, you'll find a lot of digital hubs within the cities, and there's so little of that in the rural areas. So hence this sort of pillar, trying to see how we create that how do we bridge that digital divide, particularly while looking at the aspect of digital innovation. And of course, while some of the government services have come online, and Kenya has been really active on that within the region, there's still some that are not online, and they still also are a significant fraction of the people. In this case, again, underrepresented groups and rural communities made up of women that are not having access to the digital government services. So again, the Ministry of Digital Economy has created this as a separate pillar to have new services that are meant to reach as many people as possible, becoming digital and accessible. And at the same time, the ones that are available being made to reach the underrepresented groups. Now, building on to this, I'm just moving to my next slide, which in this case speaks onto the work that is contributing to what these pillars or these strategies the government has already put out there. And one of the developments that we have ongoing, and we pretty much had it from way back in 2020 when when the Communications Authority developed the framework for TV white spaces, has been the work on spectrum sharing. So beyond the legacy models of delivering access to rural areas and legacy models that deliver connectivity, particularly through cellular connectivity or delivering fiber infrastructure, there's been the need of looking at to deliver this last mile access and also enable innovation. So, of course, with TV white spaces forming as a foundation, one chunks of work we've developed over time after that has been the immense collaboration that has been going on and still going on with the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance and FCDO alongside Communications Authority and other stakeholders to look at what other opportunities of spectrum sharing can be considered or can be looked into to enhance capacity for internet access, and of course, at the same time, enhance access to the internet. So one of that has been the work on Wi-Fi 6E, or the work in the 6 gigahertz band, and in 2022-2023, led by Strathmore University. Of course, with DSA, we worked on the coexistence studies for Wi-Fi, and in this case, helped develop what has become like a guideline on the lower band of the 60 gigahertz band that the Communications Authority published to look at ways of enhancing Wi-Fi capacity. Of course, some of the conversations happening now is to be able to see how the upper part can be, again, be adopted or reused to be able to enable more access to Wi-Fi or more capacity for Wi-Fi. During the study on the coexistence work, we did not focus on the lower part only. Unfortunately, we looked at the whole band, which the Communications Authority at this point is just evaluating how that can be extended. And beyond that, of course, what we've been able to work on between that 2023 and last year was the work to, see an opportunity or evaluate an opportunity of having non-public networks deployed in places that are underserved. And in this case, support last mile internet access, particularly maybe through private LTE or private 5G networks, have community networks deploy them in places that are underserved. And that's part of the new initiatives of pretty much combining enabling affordable access and supporting last mile internet access. And of course, at the tail end of this development is to have new policies come out that are able to support the commercial rollouts of this sort of networks and more sustainable models that these infrastructures can deliver to reach community places that are underserved, but at the same time enable places that are open or for more innovation. And from what I've just mentioned, we had the communications of Wi-Fi 6E, and of course, there's been developments that are now in pipeline to be able to see what sort of framework can be developed to support the non-public networks. And of course, beyond this, we also realize that when we talk about these conversations, there's of course the lack of capacity, particularly to some of the internet service providers that can leverage this opportunity to support the government in delivering this sort of services or in delivering this affordable and meaningful connectivity, access alternatives. And with that, we embarked on working on different digital skills program, which are running within different multi-stakeholders. Of course, FCDO has worked with Kictanet, has worked with Visca, has presently working with Afralti on various other initiatives. And even at the moment, of course, there's work going on led by DSA with Strathmore University to be able to have like a dynamic spectrum access certification program that can enable now the internet service providers understand the opportunity of spectrum sharing and the approaches that they will probably go forth to collaborate with other stakeholders to deliver this sort of models of infrastructure to support the last mile networks. And beyond that, there's also the aspect of just having the understanding of the different topics, particularly on cybersecurity. As of course, as we push for the access to the underserved, we also understand the vulnerability that comes with it, just as Samantha was saying earlier. And of course, we are keen that cybersecurity skills are developed. And also with the aspects of data protection are made to be understood by the state agencies as well as the private sector. And a plethora of other digital skills programs that are presently running in the country. Of course, we do have right now a fiber program that has been developed to be able to have community networks understand that they could also deploy their networks through fiber infrastructure, among other digital skills programs that are going on now. So I'm going to stop there, Niels, and hand back to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Leonard. Really interesting to see how this is playing out in your context there. So I'll turn over now to Professor Luzango. Professor Luzango, please take it away with your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you now, and the panelists. So my colleagues have already touched some of the aspects of topics I would like to cover, but to emphasize more on the need of broadband connectivity for development of any nation. So here in South Africa, of course, just to give you an overview, in the last 10 years, the government has made quite a good, achieved quite a good success in terms of digital transformation, particularly in connectivity. For example, we are talking about almost 78% of the population has some form of internet connectivity. However, most of the population are connected via mobile networks. Of course, the picture is similar to my colleagues in Kenya. And only around 14.5% of the population is connected via fixed internet at home. Of course, we do have a National Development Plan 2030, which calls for universal access for everyone, as we are aware that broadband connectivity can contribute quite a good percentage of GDP in developing countries. And there are some initiatives, for example, the fourth industrial revolution, and others are talking about the fifth. But how can a nation achieve that if there is no affordable or ubiquitous access to the broadband? If you look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, over half of those actually requires digital access, broadband access to be achieved by any country. So the fear is that if we proceed this way, where only a few, the few in the urban areas, for example, are just connected, and the majority of people in rural areas are not connected, we might not achieve the UN SDGs. To give you more details, I would like to give you an analogy of affordability of data here in South Africa vis-a-vis the daily household food basket cost. Of course, the cost of data, of 1 gigabit of data, has gone down from around 89 Rand per gigabyte to around 33 Rand, which is around 1.8 US dollars. However, if you compare that to the average household affordability of food, this is around 10% of that. So a household, a rural household owner will have to debate whether they should buy data or put bread on the table and also afford other things. So this has always been a challenge. How can one reduce the cost of connectivity? And this is the focus of the research that we are doing at CSAR, trying to reduce the cost of connectivity. So to give you an idea of what we've been working in the past 10 years, we've been trying to develop technologies and solutions that will allow rural communities to connect to the broadband affordably. And some of the initiatives in the area of reducing the cost of accessing spectrum, because we are aware that spectrum contribute immensely in the total cost of ownership for any operator, particularly the wireless operators like mobile networks. So one of the solutions that we're looking at is through the innovative use of spectrum by dynamically sharing it. And in the past 10 years, for example, we worked with the regulator, ICASA here, to come up with the regulations that will allow operators, big and small, to access spectrum in the broadcasting band, the so-called TV space. And by 2018, in March, that was achieved. The regulator here published the regulations on the use of TV space. And of course, communities start to utilize it to provide affordable connectivity in the rural areas. Going forward, we are now in phase 2 of that initiative, which is allowing secondary use of other parts of spectrum outside of the broadcasting band. And we are currently working with the regulator on the so-called innovation spectrum. This is the spectrum around 3.8 gigahertz to 4.2, as well as lower 6 gigahertz, the so-called Wi-Fi 6. So in this regard, we've been working very closely with the FCDO, firstly, in enabling the ICT-focused SMMEs owned by women, youth, and persons with disability in taking advantage of this spectrum, which is now available in the TV band, and as well as the one that we are busy working into to get the regulations in motion. Since around 2020, the FCDO and CSR have collaborated in supporting around 13 small, medium enterprises focused SMMEs in deploying affordable connectivity in rural areas. Around 5 provinces have been reached through this program, and over 70,000 users in rural areas are connected to this initiative daily. Over 200 public facilities have been connected through those initiatives. Over 213 jobs have been created. Over 150 small businesses have been connected. So to sum it up, it has been a success. And of course, making sure that it is sustainable. FCDO, CSR, and other partners have been providing capacity building to these beneficiary SMMEs in terms of technical and business models, so that they can be sustainable beyond the support that we're providing to them. Maybe I should stop here. Thank you now.
Thank you very much, Professor. Really interesting there, and I think already, you know, across this conversation, if you'll excuse the pun, we're really running the full spectrum of, you know, all the way from local regulatory sort of frameworks and environments, all the way up to the global normative initiatives, which I think also kind of leads us on quite nicely to our next panelist. Maria, who's going to be representing the civil society voice on this, and will hopefully be able to provide a bit more flavour on these topics, particularly from the kind of from that sort of normative angle, and in terms of our rights respecting approach to these issues. So, Maria, please.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you for all the presentation. As Neil just mentioned it, the idea of my intervention is try to complement a little bit a different angle of what you already have heard. We have heard a lot in the previous presentation around how to ensure connectivity in a sustainable way and a meaningful way, but a complement of what it means, what also was in the pillars presented initially by Alessandra, of like having inclusive and responsible and sustainable digital transformation transformation strategies look into the aspect of like what means unpacking, having effective and inclusive participation of different stakeholders at the local level, involved from the very beginning in the design and the deployment of these different strategies. And this is something that has been part of the core work of the Global Partners Digital organization. Across the years, we have been working with partners in different regions around the world and trying to support them to unpack in their own work at the local level and working in collaboration with local authorities in setting kind of the elements of what it means and what are the benefits of having participatory process of design and implementation, deployment of digital strategies. So applied particularly to the context of connectivity. Also, I think Samantha was referring to these uses gaps. Many times when we start with the deployment of these digital transformation strategies or the implementation of this project, we focus very heavily in the first part, which is like ensuring that the population can be effectively connected, have broadband access to the devices, and increasingly we think also in digital skills, as we have heard in many of the program, are essential part of the implementation. But then there is an additional layer when we increase the sophistication and we provide tools to the local actor to engage meaningfully with these policies. So one element that I would like to see more in the future, probably for revisions of the strategy, is like where it sits, like the more participatory angle that can be a little bit part of the inclusive approach, but also it's part of the responsible approach, because we only know what we know, we don't know what we don't know. So the only way in being effective in responding to the needs of the local communities and the local realities and the context is to have by design the digital transformation policies being produced and discussed at the local level with the relevant actors, with the traditionally marginalized communities also, because we need to go beyond the top-down approach of like seeing that we are providing certain technologies and certain skills to certain population, but we need to learn what are their needs, what are their ways in which they start to engage, and how technology start to transform the social life at the community level. And all those elements should be taken in account on when we are talking about digital transformation that is really conscious and rights respecting for the exercise of the best measure for human development. And the final angle that I would like to include on that, because maybe probably after we will not have much time for discussion, is like what is the relevance of the connection between the local developments and the global guidance. I have seen in the work of Global Partners Digital that many groups at the local level struggle to show their local governments, the local policymakers, the benefit of like looking into digital transformation policy with this human rights angle approach, and also even, for example, in the engagement of companies that look at the many of the developing countries that are engaging in digital transformation strategies as markets, but not necessarily are willing to offer the same level of protection that are offered in other places and another jurisdictions. So I think that there is an inherent benefit in keeping an eye in what is the global development in terms of governance of the technologies with a human rights approach. There is a lot of work that is being conducted by the UN bodies, providing guidance in the implementation of many of specific technologies in different fields, in cybersecurity, in artificial intelligence governance, in platform governance, and all that should be part also of the interaction and feeding the local perspective in terms of how to design meaningful, responsible, and sustainable digital transformation at the local level. We try to be good partners, as our name says, Global Partners Digital, in trying to bring that to the different groups working on the ground. So if you want to have more access to information, I encourage you to visit our website, and there are many materials, and happy to be in contact for anyone that can benefit of some of the projects that we have implemented in that sense. I'll stop there for now. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you so much, Maria. Really appreciate it. So we have just a little bit of time left now for questions. So if anyone here in the audience would like to ask a question, please do go up to one of the microphones on either side of the stage. And all I'd ask is when you do, please state your name and any organizational affiliation you're with. And if you'd like to address your question to any of the panelists. We also, of course, have online participation. This is a hybrid session, and I believe there's a Mentimeter attached to that. So I'm just going to double check the chat and see if there's any questions. If there are none in the room, or indeed online, then I am more than happy to ask a question to the panel here. I think we've really covered quite a kind of broad spectrum of issues here, and running the full gamut of digital development. And it's really clear, I think, as a kind of recurring theme from the conversation that we've had, is the need to not just ensure connectivity, but meaningful connectivity, and ensuring that it's not just technology for the sake of technology, but ensuring it's actually rights respecting. And of course, part of that is that we are hearing a great deal about the kind of risks and issues that are created, obviously, with the adoption of new technologies. So I suppose as a bit of an open question to the panel, and I welcome perspectives from anyone, but be really interested to hear a bit more on this balance between kind of innovation and increasing connectivity. So increasing connectivity and balancing that with the need to prevent new harms, such as Alessandra, you mentioned, tech-facilitated gender-based violence, cybercrime, disinformation have kind of all appeared. I'd welcome any thoughts from that on the panel as we rapidly approach the end.
Shall I jump in? Shall I break the ice? Before I jump back into the risks, allow me to stress one point, because there's been a theme through the conversations and presentations of this morning, which is the approach of community networks to increase not just affordable and inclusive, but also meaningful connectivity. And I just wanted to stress that we work with the Association for Progressive Communication to actually deepen that approach. And that is an approach actually that, because it's community-based, it really starts from as Maria indicated very importantly, on avoiding the risk, because this is also a risk of exclusion, of being very top-down in the way we propose technological solutions, and actually hearing, first of all, from the community what are their needs, but also their potential and their ambitions. And I think the APC has been done a fantastic job as a global partner across the 5 countries of the DAP, but also beyond. They're a global partner, so I encourage anybody who is interested in community networks approaches to approach APC and get more information there. We did a great session with them yesterday as well, and there's a new publication also that we've launched. So after this plug on community networks, because it's one of my passions, going back to the risks part, maybe I'll just focus on TFGBV, because I would just want to give space to the others. So we've done a lot of work on not just promoting approaches to online safety, which always has to go both at the level of regulatory frameworks, but also the capability of the users themselves. So also we always build into digital skills development trainings, always cyber hygiene awareness and online safety sort of tools and sort of skills. But at the same time, when you go specifically into technology-facilitated gender-based violence, the theme becomes more complex. And so we've done additional research to try and really understand the drivers, so where that comes from, and what can we do also to kind of prevent that dynamic, rather than only deal with, try to support the sort of survivors, so to say, to deal with the consequences. I'll stop there, but just to say that if anybody wants to know more on that approach on preventing TFGBV, we also have a global partnership of the UK with different countries around the world on this. Please come and talk to me or other FCDO colleagues, and we can tell you more on that. I'll just stop on that. Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alessandra. We have just a few minutes left in case anyone has any questions, so please do feel free to approach the microphones if so.
I can jump in also with that.
Maria.
Yeah. Just a compliment also from my previous remark, I think that one essential element in terms of like ensuring this human rights approach that I am advocating for and address in an effective manner the potential risk or the harms that come from some of these very relevant development, but we need to acknowledge that they all have like a negative sides also, as well as they bring a lot of potentiality for improving human life. They bring new risk and new challenges. It's precisely enhancing at the same time that we're enhancing the access to the technology and the ability of the people to meaningfully interact with technology, enhancing the other structure, the institutional structure, the normative structure that will allow particularly to be able to track in an effective manner what is the impact that the deployment of technology is having on the ground. So usually when we focus in providing meaningful connectivity and more meaningful access more largely to technologies, we focus much more in the shiny object than in the potentiality of the negative impact that the shiny object can have. So what we advocate with a human rights approach is that we do both. Those are not some elements that are contradictory or a zero-sum game. We can do both at the same time, and they have like a great benefit in terms of like reinforcement, legitimacy, and ensuring that it's not mission creep in terms of the original intention of the digital transformation policies that we are implementing. Because usually, I mean, I totally, truly believe that there are good intentions behind the deployment of the technology always, but there are a lot of unknown, and the unknown are not only coming from the nature of the technology itself, they come from the specific interaction that happen between specific technologies and local contexts and realities and cultural and social elements that are different from one place to another. So that is why like monitoring constantly how this is unpacking and being able to have mechanism in place to course correct, to have oversight and review and repeat in the cycle of policy designing are fundamental for ensuring a human rights respective approach in the digital future.
Thank you, Maria. I'm afraid I can't see our online participants on the screen I have in front of me, so please do just chime in if you have anything to add.
Yeah, they could just jump in, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Yeah, I just probably wanted to share a bit of a little perspective. I see we only have a minute, so I to keep it low. Sure. So I recently just came from, actually yesterday, I came from the Busia County, which is a county to the western part of Kenya in neighboring Uganda. And moving around that county, probably I found it to be the most underserved in terms of cellular access in the country since I've been moving around. It has, going by the words of the Alliance for Affordable Internet Access and ITU's definition of meaningful internet access, the best connection you will get in most of the places as you go deeper is 3G. And many other places I had Edge, 2G. And more, that's something that I found baffling was just how many schools are next to each other in such regions. And when I started thinking about it, I realized just the population reported by the National Bureau of Statistics of that county, somehow practically it's not correct. It makes me doubt if we really have the right figure of the global population as 8 billion, or there are more people that we're not really counting as we think about this stuff. So looking at the intersection of connectivity and innovation, something that struck my mind was we have an avenue to have community networks really function to deliver meaningful and affordable access in the rural areas. But beyond that, because of the conversations we were having with farmers, it was very interesting to note that they also need digital solutions. So I'm looking at the intersection of connectivity brought on by community networks and maybe community networks supporting also innovation to support those sort of sectors in some of the underserved areas. Sorry, I get into extra time, but
Not at all. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And yes, indeed, unfortunately, we are not only out of time, but slightly over time. So we're going to have to wrap up there. But I think all that remains to say is thank you so much to our panelists, both here in the room and those online, all our participants here in the room and online. There will be a summary report of this session produced and published, I believe, to the IGF website. So please do keep an eye out for that. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of our panelists here in saying we'd be very happy to continue the conversation afterwards. So thank you again, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Yep.